Hey y'all, how y'all doing? Me, I am doing good. Welcome to my podcast, African Melanin Queens. I'm your host. Y'all know who I am, and on YouTube, y'all know who I am as well. Thank you guys for joining me for this episode. If you guys like the commentary, please go to Spreaker.com/African Melanin Queens and you will see my podcast there. If you guys want to see all of my podcasts, you can go to asha.mariama and you'll see all of my podcasts that I do as far as recovery life coaching. I am a certified recovery life coach all about helping people in their paths, their journeys, and their purpose to a new and better you through self-discovery. Give me 1 second. For some reason, there's one I gotta get rid of. So bear with me a minute. Some reason it's not working. So let me find the channel I am going to put it on instead because apparently some of these channels on my other thing doesn't work. So hey y'all on my other platform. I hope you guys enjoy this podcast. But I am a certified recovery life coach that is all about helping people find their paths, their purpose, and their journey to a new and better you through self discovery. So I appreciate you guys joining me on all of my platforms for this particular episode. Now, this episode is going to be probably hard for me to do because this has something to do with somebody being unalived due to police brutality. And as someone who has seen so many people pass away due to police brutality, everybody from Rodney King to Trayvon Martin to Michael Brown to Eric Garner, Sandra Bland to the guy in I forgot his name that was in Georgia, and then you had Mr. Wright, and then the other guy that actually survived, but he's paralyzed for the rest of his life. There are millions of African American people, male and female alike, that have had to deal with someone due to police brutality. I remember when I saw the Rodney King situation, and I remember how devastating that was to see him being beaten the way he was being beaten. And he, even though he did survive those injuries, he was never the same since those injuries. There's no amount of money that you can give somebody to go through something so traumatic. And what they gave him to me wasn't even nowhere near enough money. And then when I saw Trayvon Martin and when George Zimmerman decided he wanted to unalive Trayvon because he had a hoodie on and he ended up losing his life and he ended up getting acquitted. We all saw the Rodney King situation when all those police officers got acquitted. I remember Breonna Taylor, and when I heard about that situation and the fact that they overturned the conviction for one of the police officers was absolutely insane. They didn't even want to try the case because of the fact of the black, and that was even worse. The black, what was it? I think he was like a politician or someone that did not want to try the case, and he ended up losing his job eventually. Boy, karma is definitely something. And I remember Black Lives Matter when it was supposed to be about helping all these black families, not only to be able to bury their children, but also to be able to get them not only justice, but also getting them some type of retribution for what happened. But yet we found out that Black Lives Matter was scamming, which is not good for our community at all. It's amazing how people can sit up here and scam the black community and it's our own people. It's really, really sad. Then I also remember George Floyd. When I saw that situation with George Floyd, I was just in disbelief. I couldn't believe the man said he couldn't breathe, and yet they still continuously continued to hurt this man to the point of unaliving this man because he was claustrophobic. They didn't even think of the fact that this man was claustrophobic. They didn't even talk to this man to even to find out what happened. All they did was believe somebody in the store who said he brought a counterfeit bill into the store, not even asking him, did he know anything about it? Did he know that he had it? No, they just unalived this man. So police brutality is really at an all-time high. I also remember an autistic young man that got shot in front of his mother. Let's not even forget about Mr. Nichols, who was unalived by 5 black police officers, but we don't talk about that part of that as well. It's not just Caucasian people that are unaliving people. It is all race of people that are unaliving people. And it's not even about police officers. It's also the crimes that go on in this world that shouldn't be going on in the first place. So I'm going to give a different perspective on police brutality. Now, the one thing my dad always told me, when you get stopped by the police, you make sure your ID and everything is out on your lap. And you make sure it's in your hand when you hand it to them. Number 2, your car should not be smelling like ganja to the point it gives people just cause to check your car. Number 3, do not give these police officers an attitude. They have a gun. I remember the young man that got shot by accident by the police officer, because she thought she was pulling out a taser and she ended up pulling out a gun. Let's not forget about the man that was in his house and the Caucasian police officer came in and shot him because she thought she was in the wrong godforsaken, that he was in the wrong godforsaken apartment and that he was in her apartment. Come to find out she was in his apartment. See, this lack of emotional intelligence is absolutely ridiculous, and that is part of the problem. Too many people are in this ego, pride, 7 deadly sin type of thing, and then you have people that have no emotional intelligence whatsoever and should not be police officers. And also, not only that, you should also check people's mental health to see if they have PTSD, whether they have depression, whether they have anxiety, whether they've been bullied. Because a lot of times, with a lot of people, when it comes to them having guns, a lot of these people have been bullied when they were kids. And now that they have a gun, now they can go from being the victim to being the victimizer. And this can happen, unfortunately, sadly enough, but it can happen. Now, with the Sonya Massey situation, that right there is no question this man unalived this woman. This woman called them because of the fact that she thought she heard a problem. Now, from what I know, if she did have a disability, from what they said, well, if you knew this woman had a disability, then all you had to say was, go around the house, check to make sure there's no prowler, and say, ma'am, there's no prowler. Everything is fine. You have a good evening. Why would they in her house? What reason would they have to go into her house? Then come to find out, allegedly, there's new evidence saying that her and the police officer's wife got into it at the hospital. So there's some other information that's going on. Now, the fact that he did what he did is beyond sad, and it's really hard to even believe that somebody could come in your house and pull a gun on you that is a police officer because you said, I rebuke you, because you thought she was going to pour hot water on you. Now, my question is, has he had a run-in with her before? That's my question. Has he had a run-in with her before? Because if he had a run-in with her before, then it probably gives some type of context why what happened. Why would he think that she's going to pour water on him unless they've had an altercation before? Unless these two have seen each other before. Or there was another incident that happened which came back about his wife. But I don't know too much about that, so I'm going to say allegedly. All I will say is my condolences to her and her family. But I really have a question that I would love to have the answer to. Why in the world do you all keep hiring Ben Crump to basically be y'all attorney? Like there's not other lawyers out there. Ben Crump has not won a case that I know of. I haven't even seen him go to court. I've noticed that what has been going on with Benjamin Crump is that he gets them settlements, and yet none of these people go to court. Now, I don't understand why in the world would you sue somebody and the person has not went to court yet. So it seemed to me like these police officers are still getting away with it, because instead of him going ahead and letting the court systems go ahead and convict these people, these individuals, they present all these black people with low ball paychecks. And let me break it down why I feel some type of way. I'm going to go all the way back to Breonna Taylor. Breonna Taylor's parents got $29 million. How long do you think $29 million is going to last? And then after the lawyers get their portion of it, and then after the fees and everything, they probably got 15 million out of that. How long do you think 15 million is gonna last? Not long. Is it like with Trayvon Martin's family? I don't even know if they got anything for what happened to him. I don't know. Just like with Eric Garner's family, they didn't get anything. Michael Brown's family didn't get anything. So all these kids that have lost their lives, and all of these adults that have lost their lives to police brutality, these families haven't gotten any compensation for what happened to their children. And yet and still, you got Breonna Taylor's family, $29 million is all you got them. I don't know why they deal with Ben Crump. I would never let Ben Crump represent my family if something happened in my situation like that. He will be the last person that will be representing me, because $29 million is not enough for what happened to my daughter or my son. There is no way. There is no amount of money that could ever bring my child back. If I had to choose between my child coming back and money, give me my child back. But yet and still, these people keep depending on Ben Crump when he's going to get you the bare minimum when it comes to how much for your child. 29 million is not enough for your child. If you're not going to give me anything more than $100 million for my child, I'm not taking it. I'm not taking it. I want them in prison. Number one, before I even do a lawsuit, I'm going to make sure they're convicted. Because that way, when they're convicted, I get more money. And then I'm taking some of the money and I'm giving it to a charity, and then creating something to help children, especially black children, on how to deal with these situations. But I remember when the Nichols thing happened, and I noticed that black people weren't as outraged that 5 black police officers pulled this man over, and then he runs and gets beaten, and nobody says nothing about it. The 2 college students during the George Floyd that went to Spelman and Morehouse got pepper sprayed by some police officers who happened to be African American, and nobody has said nothing about that. Nobody said anything about DC when that young man got shot, and we still don't know who shot him. And the situation with Atlanta, where a young girl was shot during a protest because they thought the car was a Caucasian or police, so they decided to shoot the car. Luckily, everybody else in there survived, but this one little girl passed away. Oh, but we're not going to talk about that. We're not going to talk about all the gang banging and how many people lost their lives during gang banging. We're not going to talk about all the domestic violence and all the missing women that are missing, but yet y'all don't want to have that conversation either. When are black women ever going to be protected? Because I'm just trying to figure that out. When are we going to be protected? Because it just seems like we're not protected in any aspect. We're not protected in government. We're not protected when it comes to situations when it comes to men. We're not protected when it comes to even at jobs. When are we going to be protected? And we certainly were not protected during slavery. So when are we going to be protected? Because if we really want to go in history, then let's go here. Black women lost their children in Africa. Okay, I'm gonna go here because I'm tired of y'all at this point. African women, African descent women, have lost their children long before 2024. So let's break down something that a lot of y'all don't want to have a conversation about. We're gonna have a conversation about this today. Number one, in Africa, African people were fighting amongst each other and trying to take over lands long before the Portuguese, the Spanish, and the Dutch got there, right? Now, didn't we lose our children in? Our children were stripped away from us all the way to Africa. Then you had the Portuguese that came on over. Come on and go with me. Doom, doom. Come on over to my place. They came over and we became indigenous servants. That's what we became before we became slaves. We were indigenous servants. Okay, if you don't believe me, look it up. Anyway, we were taken to Scotland. We were taken to all the Spanish communities in Europe. Now, when did Britain ever catch their eyes on, African people? Queen Charlotte. Queen Charlotte was how they found out about light-skinned Africans that were basically where these rich and powerful Hispanics and, French and all these other people and Dutch were messing around with African women. Now, we don't know how indigenous servants went during that time because we don't think to look it up. But I think I'm going to look up some information about indigenous servants, and I think I'm going to talk about that because, see, we really need to talk about what slavery was like in other countries, not just America. We need to find out what it was like to be in slavery when it came to Spain, when it comes to Portugal, when it comes to the Dutch, when it comes to the French. Don't y'all think we should find that out? Don't you think we need to find out exactly where our ancestors came from? Oh, but we can't because we don't know their last names. We don't know what their names are because the only names we know are the ones in the United States of America. So we have no idea who our ancestors were because we'd have to go all the way back to 1492. Oh, or do we have to go further than that? Oh, because the first actual indigenous servants that are now Aborigines, the ones that y'all said, oh, well, black people who had been here. No, we were not. Let me tell you how Africans, now black people, came to the United States before 1492. It was the Spanish, aka Vasquez, that brought African indigenous servants to America, aka Florida. Florida was the first state that was ever a colony in the United States. It was not Virginia in 1492. It was actually the Spanish that came and resided in Florida. That's why Florida is majority of Africans and Hispanic people, because the first Africans came to Florida before 1492. I mean, if you want me to, I can pretty much play a video for you proving my point. So y'all can get 1492 out of your godforsaken heads. Because 1492 was not when African people came to the United States. Not only that, Africans were actually also in South America. And we know about the Caribbeans and the islands. But we never talk about what and indigenous servants, what it was like for them when it came to South America. How did we end up in South America? So it's not just about acid reflux. It ain't just about the fact of what went over here. It's about the fact that y'all need to know the history of every single solitary country that had indigenous servants. See, we were indigenous servants because before we became slaves. And if you've seen Bridgerton, then that proves that black people weren't all treated as badly as American slaves. That they were able to buy back their freedom, which they were. So they were able to buy back their freedom. That would mean they were able to live normal, no differently than anybody else. Because why would Prince George marry a girl that is biracial, or what y'all like to call mulattoes, or what you would like to call, what was that thing? Colored. That's it, colored. So, the fact that y'all thought that all black slaves were treated badly, in all actuality, they were not. So if you went to Portugal and you went to Spain, you were able to buy back your freedom. America was the only country that would not allow you to buy back your freedom. America was the worst form of slavery when it came to African people. See, before y'all sit up here and just say you don't understand why Tyler calls herself colored and why all these other countries don't look at slavery the way we do in America, because none of these other countries were treated badly except in the islands of Jamaica, which was called bucking. Yeah, a lot of y'all don't know about that, and I can't really talk about that. But look it up. If you know anything about bucking, then you will understand why black men are the way they are as of today. Because a lot of y'all went through that. But anyway, I'll say it in this context. The same way that same way when black men go to prison and they have been with men, the same way they get treated in jail, is the same way that happened during bucking. But I'm not going to really get too in context with that. But anyway, like I said, but when it came to France, when it came to Spain, when it came to Portugal and the Dutch, black people were not treated as badly because they had what's called the Moors. The Moors were very educated people, and they were able to be within the community. That's why a lot of people in Britain, a lot of people that are in those communities don't understand why, black people feel some type of way about the word colored. So now you pretty much understand why. Now, like I said, I get the fact that for a lot of you, what we have learned about our culture pretty much is a bold-faced lie. But that's because I've done my own research and because I've watched people. And matter of fact, there was a biracial young lady that was talking to a bunch of Caucasian people about our history. It's amazing how Caucasian people know more about our history than what we do. It's amazing how Caucasian people go to Spain and go to all these other countries and find out what it was like for us as African people in these countries. So if you want to know why they're trying to rewrite history, because the same way that the Moors were treated, that's why they're trying to say that's how we were treated, even though that was nowhere near the case. Now, even during that time, our children were pretty much stripped from us, even during that time. So our husbands and our children were pretty much stripped. But at least we could buy back our freedom. So we had no idea where our children are. So for all we know, we could be with someone that is a family member and we wouldn't even know. Why? Because we've always been separated. But let's also talk about the fact that black women were forced, like in India, to marry a relative. I mean, do y'all want to have that conversation? I mean, we can have this conversation all day long if you like. Africa was no different than India when it comes to culture. Same thing with Dubai, no different. So in African culture, you could be married at the age of 9 years old. I mean, if you go back to the color purple, what did Celie's father say to Mister when he said that he wanted Nellie or Nettie? He said no, but I'll give you Celie, but she's spoiled goods. Now a lot of y'all that went over a lot of y'all heads. What did that mean? Meaning she has children. So number one, she has sex, and number two, she was spoiled goods. But we can have this conversation. So black women have been spoiled goods even before Africa. because we were forced to basically have sex. It wasn't about us having a choice of when we were going to have sex. Oh, it wasn't none of that. It was never going to be that conversation. We had sex because we had to breed to make slaves. But see, y'all on these panels don't never have that conversation. So if you think that y'all can't understand why black women act the way they do, I can explain it for you. Because black women never had a choice as far as anything that we've done. We had to sit there and have a person that was non-black having sex with us in front of 20 men that couldn't do nothing about it. And then when we got pregnant, we were abandoned and had to raise a child that was pretty much mixed, and a black man was forced to have to raise that child. So that explains why black men don't want to raise another child. Let's go there. Y'all don't want to raise another child because y'all had to raise another man's child that was biracial that had you enslaved. I mean, y'all really want to have this conversation? You really want to have this conversation? Because I'm telling y'all right now, if I get on people's panels, y'all gonna hate me because I'm gonna bring this up. So black women before, and Africa wasn't even the original name of Africa. Ethiopia and all the names that you have now were not the original names. So when they came over there, aka the Spanish, the Portuguese, and the Dutch, which means Britain never came to Africa. And when I was a kid, we were told that the British went over there and got us. Now we know that's not true. Now we know that's not true. But I'm going to get into how we ended up in the situation we're in America. And it's very interesting. Anyway, so when they came over there for minerals. They came over there for all the stuff they getting now for these cell phones and all this other stuff. Yeah. Africa is a gold mine when it comes to minerals. Do you know how much these countries owe Africa for all the stuff they done took from over there? So when they came over there, they were already fighting. We were already fighting amongst each other. We were already enslaving each other. Did you know that gladiators came from us? Because there was a woman that was a queen that had 1,000 husbands, and she used to make all of them fight for one night with her, which became Greece's version of gladiators. Do you know that Greek mythology came from black mythology when the Africans migrated to Greece? Do you not know that Medusa actually came from our dreads? Oh, didn't know that, did you? Do you know that some of the African gods are actually in Greek mythology? Yeah, it is. So, I mean, we can talk about it. So at the end of the day, like I said, there were black queens that went against Rome, that fought against Rome. There is a queen that actually chopped off the head of a statue of Julius Caesar and kept it as a godforsaken souvenir. Do you not understand there were black queens? And there were black women that when their children were young were actually running the country? Black mothers that ran the country, and that man was just a seat filler? Oh, I'm sorry. Was I supposed to say that? My bad. I wasn't supposed to say that. My bad. So I know you're probably wondering where I'm going with all of this. Well, that is the reason why we go through what we go through. See, I'm gonna bring up something that y'all say all the time, and it'll make sense. Y'all always say we are gods, that women are gods. Y'all always say that we were the first. It was us, and it was the Arabs. The Arabs are the ones that wrote the Bible. Well, some of the Bible. African people also wrote some of the Bible as well. So Africans and the Arabs are the ones who wrote the Bible, not Caucasian people. See, all it is that if you go to the Vatican all the scriptures of the Bible that can be read is what is written. There are still multiple scrolls of actual writings that still to this day cannot be, I mean, you can't read it. They don't even know what language it is. And that right there should tell you something. That means there's two different groups that wrote the Bible, black people and Arabs. Because if you listen to what they said as far as what Jesus was a mixture of African and Arab. Okay. So how do we know that one of them was African and one of them was Arab? Do we not know that? See, this is where the common sense critical thinking comes from, because I'm one of these people that thinks outside the box. And y'all keep saying, oh, God doesn't exist. Oh, trust me, God exists. Trust me, Jesus exists. Trust me, Noah's Ark existed. Everything in the Bible, if y'all go to the God-forsaken History channel, it will show you that it's real. But no, because you see St. James on that God-forsaken, excuse me, Lord, on that Bible, that you think they wrote it. They didn't write it. You are disrespecting your own God-forsaken destiny because y'all want to be ghetto, wretched, ignorant, stupid, and dumb. You don't want to build a Wakanda. Y'all don't want to build and be a nation outside of the United States. No, you don't want to do that. Y'all don't want to fulfill your destiny. You want something built for you. You want something given to you. You think that you're going to get reparations one of these days, and you ain't. How real do you want me to go? When Stan Lee, Lord God rest his soul, I remember the first time I took my child to go see Black Panther. I saw white people, black people, all race of people in that movie theater as one people. It was all race of people that was in there watching Black Panther. When I saw that beautiful, beautiful land and that beautiful city, I said, Stan Lee, are you trying to tell me something? Are you trying to tell me that's what we were supposed to have? If the Spanish and the Dutch and the Portuguese would have never came to the United States, was this what we're supposed to have? Do you not understand that Black Panther came from the Black Panther Party? Do you know it came from the Harlem Renaissance was how he got his inspiration? I'm just trying to understand, how is it that y'all don't understand you can't make a nation within a nation, and you certainly cannot mess with non-believers if you are a believer. If you're a believer in God, why in the world would you deal with a non-believer? What kind of sense does that make? The damage that has went on in this community is absolutely ridiculous. And I don't condone either. I don't condone police brutality, and I do not condone black on black crime. I don't condone either one. It should be nobody in the black community that should be doing crimes in any shape, form, or fashion. Especially after 400 years of slavery. Why in the world would y'all want to commit crimes and destroy each other like we did in Africa? We already destroyed each other in Africa, which gave them an opening in the first place, because when they got there, we was already fighting. We were already enslaving each other. We were already doing gladiators. All this stuff was already being done already. Already. And I know some of y'all gonna run because you ain't ready for this conversation. You're not. You're not ready for this conversation because, see, my parents went through segregation. My great grandmother told me about slavery. So at the end of the day, I am somebody that I said I was never going to disrespect my ancestors. I was never not going to sit up here and disrespect my own. I would never hurt my own, especially after everything we went through 400 years to get free. Just for y'all what? To commit crimes? Just for y'all to leave us as baby mamas like back during Africa? when they were fighting amongst wars and women lost their children and lost their husbands and were enslaved by our own African people. To go from that to come to this country and not only be sexually assaulted and black men laying there watching it happen and not being able to do anything. Do y'all remember 12 years of slavery? Just to prove my point, 12 years of slavery. I remember distinctly the actual time where I saw La Pizza, and she should have got an Oscar for that. That man that wanted her so bad. And I remember she was laying beside the guy that got kidnapped and brought back to slavery from New York. That man that was non-black had sex with her in front of all of the black men, and there was nothing they could do. So if you want to talk about demasculation, if you want to talk about control, and programming, they did a hell of a job, did they not? So now, knowing this, I saw that and I couldn't do nothing but cry. I couldn't do nothing but cry to see the fact that Lupita's character was to the point she just wanted to die. She just wanted to unalive herself. And that man tried to stop her. I remember she said that woman found out she was pregnant and punched her in her stomach. She did everything she could to get away from that man. Everything she could to get away from him. And I remember they had them and they were showing as far as how much they got as far as from being out there in the fields. So if we don't talk about it, then we need to talk about some of the most darkest things that have ever happened, shall we? So to sit there and see that black men sat there and watched multiple black women be sexually assaulted, let's not even talk about prostitution. The first prostitution came from biracial women. There was a biracial woman that was the first woman to basically create prostitution for Caucasian men. You have no idea how many biracial women were sold as slaves and sold into prostitution. You have no idea how many times black women were sexually assaulted by all, including black men. Let's not even forget about the breeding rooms where black women who were able to have babies, it wasn't about her being in love with that man. It was about the fact of breeding slaves. So, do y'all really want to have this conversation? We can have it. Because you're probably figuring, what does any of this have to do with 2024? I'm going to get there in a second. So now you have black women that are forced to have sex against their will in every aspect that there is. So do you really think that black women really know how to have sex correctly? Do you really think that black women know how to have sex willingly? And how easy it was for the Jezebel spirit and the harlot spirit and the siren spirit and the succubus spirit to get into black women that is today? You didn't think that black women of today would be as they are today? I knew it. I knew it. I knew this was coming, even as a kid. Because the reason why black women are the way we are now is because of what we had no choice but to be. See, it was a difference between Caucasian women when it came to going into the sex industry, because Caucasian women were the first ones to go into the sex industry. It was Caucasian women that was the Sex in the City, but y'all don't want to have that conversation, do you? Caucasian women were the first ones when it came to threesomes and when it came to swinging and when it came to all this other stuff that I'm not going to talk about. But y'all don't want to have that conversation, do you? I remember there was a time that you couldn't even talk to a Caucasian woman. If not, you had to worry about being lynched. The Jim Crow law. So but let's go into how we actually got here. For those of y'all who are talking about y'all are Aborigines. You're not Aborigines, you're still African. But let's get into it. The reason why you were already here before 1492 because Vasquez basically let me go back to what I said about Florida. He actually colonized Florida. Florida was actually the first actual colony that was from non-Indians or non-Mexicans. Indians are actually a descendant from Mexico. If you go to Mexico, you'll see a whole bunch of Indian tribes in Mexico. If you want to go there as far as the Aztecs, if you look at the Aztecs, they are actually descendants from the Aztecs. But then again, a lot of y'all didn't pay attention to history class, but I did. But anyway, so being that when they came to Florida, we never talked about how the Spanish ran into the Indians, but they did. You don't believe me? You can ask a whole bunch of Indians, and they'll be more than happy to tell you that before they met the British Americans, they met the Spanish. So how they found out about us in America was when they started building, and after what happened when they enslaved Indians, they found us in Florida. They made a deal with the Spanish, the Dutch, and the Portuguese to bring slaves to America. They were under the assumption that that basically the same way that every other culture did indigenous servants, they thought that the British Americans were going to treat us the same way, which is the reason why it happened in the first place. And you know what else is funny? The only reason that Africans started sending us off in the first place because they wanted our guns so they could take over lands because they were already fighting amongst each other in the first place. Interesting, huh? So we were enslaved for some godforsaken guns so they could keep taking over lands. And then what's funny is the French are the ones that actually were the first ones that started taking over lands. So it wasn't the Spanish, it wasn't the Dutch, it was actually the French. They were the ones that started changing the names and started changing all of the names in Africa. And they were the ones that were the first ones that started going over there and trying to take over all the minerals, which in terms is why the French don't want to give up Africa and Congo and all these other places. So now you have an understanding as to why everything that happened in Africa and everything that happened in this country happened the way it did. That is the reason why it went from us being slaves to the French coming over there and enslaving Africans and basically stealing their minerals and having them out there basically in those mines, like in Congo. Now, I'm sure you're probably wondering, what does this have to do with anything as far as 2024? Well, if you knew all of this, then y'all certainly would not be out here committing crimes, and you certainly would not give these people a reason to think that you are animals and think that you are basically hoodlums and ghetto, ratchet, ignorant, stupid, and dumb. But let me go even further. Let's talk about when we went through the Tuskegee experiments. Do you know how many experiments were done on African people? Do you know some of the first surgeries were basically done on Africans without anesthesia and it was illegal? Are they going to get charged for that? Nope. Are any of these people ever going to get charged for what happened to us 400 years ago? No. Are you ever going to get any retribution? No. No. But let's talk about all during the Civil War and how it was other countries that came over here that also fought in that war. When they found out about the way we were being treated, the same way when it came to Hitler and what they did to Hitler was no differently than what these people did over here. They were no different. That's why I can't even distinguish the difference between Hitler and these people over here that had us in slavery for 400 years. Because if you clearly see Donald Trump in 2024, then you will understand why I say that he is no different than Hitler. Because he's not. And that is what he's trying to do. He's trying to create a Hitler 2.0. I mean, if you look at Nostradamus pretty much put this all out there. But then again, y'all didn't pay attention in history class. How does a black woman know all of this stuff? I mean, I'm very well educated. That's why. And the one thing my grandmother told me, don't you ever get involved in that ghetto, ratchet, ignorant, stupid, dumb behavior. Do not get involved in that. That's why I thank God my father's grandmother owns land, and she does. We own 28 acres of land. Man, I don't even know how. You know what? I don't even know how much land we own. Do you know how many people got stripped of their land? during the Harlem Renaissance and Black Wall Street. See, we were thriving during Black Wall Street and during the Harlem Renaissance. Oh, we were doing very well. We had land. But then what happened? There is somebody right now, and I cannot think of his name right now. It will come to me later. I actually did, and I actually showed this man's story, but my video got taken down. There was a man that had 120 acres of land in Georgia. Georgia. Anyway, so there was a man that ran over a cow. I forgot what animal it was. But anyway, long story short, you got charged if you ran over a Caucasian person's animal. You would go to court and go to jail. Well, they wanted that man's land, so you know what they did? They falsely accused him of saying that he was aiding and abetting this man. When this man was long gone, they knew he was long gone. What did they do? They took that man, beat him up, and unalived him and his wife. His wife survived, but because they unalived him, she couldn't keep the land. So you know what they did? They stripped her of her land. Do you know how many people have been stripped of their land and they never got paid for it? See, the reason why all of this stuff is so important, because if you don't know all this stuff, then how in the world would you know how to go about dealing with our culture? So let's go even further. So we went from that. And you remember, and I know some of y'all gonna run because some of y'all ain't ready for these conversations, so I'm not even surprised by that. But let's get into Harlem Nights, right? Do you remember Harlem Nights when the Italians came in there and they took 70%, and only gave them 30% when it came to Black people? They didn't think that Black people would be able to actually own businesses. They didn't think that Black people would be able to be successful. They thought we were just going to be non-speaking people that could never speak English. Well, how wrong were they? How wrong were they? And that's why they put us in the ghettos. They put us in the ghettos because they wanted us to be ignorant, stupid, and dumb. And it worked like a godsend charm. That's why they put alcohol and all this stuff. And that's why most of the drugs were supposed to be geared towards Black people. When the Italians came and they started selling drugs, they were also in the same neighborhoods that we were in. And that's how Black people even knew about drugs, was because the Italians were also, in the Hispanic community, were also in the same communities. So it wasn't just Black people, Hispanic people were also. And so they used drugs to be able to basically build it. But when they couldn't control it, meaning that when Caucasian people started doing drugs, that's when it became a problem. It was okay when Black people were being hooked on drugs and their own community was being hooked on drugs, but it was not okay when it came to Caucasian people being hooked on drugs, aka Hollywood. So then when the mobsters and the gangsters and everybody, and a lot of people didn't pay attention to, what was the movie? Casino. Do y'all know that the Italians were the ones that basically built up Vegas? That it was the Italians? It was Italians that created Vegas. And the only reason they got rid of the Italians when it came to drugs was because the Italians were about to be on equal footing to Caucasian people. And they didn't want that. So they locked them up. And Black people thought, okay, we can do the same thing, because you'll be amazed how many Black people were actually working for these mobsters and these gangsters back in the day, which is why you have Frank Lucas and all these other different people. There's so many I cannot name, the real Rick Ross, and why they had access to the Colombians. Now, Rick Ross was connected to the Colombians. And to this day, they still weren't able to get the Colombians that were helping Rick Ross. And Rick Ross, if he wouldn't have got hooked on drugs, probably would have been a very powerful man. But see, the problem is when Black folks started selling drugs, their mind frame was not a business mind frame, where unlike the mobsters that were the Italians and the Hispanics, they were about taking that money and building their community. They were about taking it and making restaurants and doing all these things. Black people, on the other hand, it wasn't about that. It was about getting a fancy car. It was about a bunch of women. It was about sex, but it was never about building the community. It was never about taking that money and building a business. It was never about that. It was never about that because we didn't have that type of frame, as far as mind frame, because we were supposed to be ghetto, ratchet, ignorant, stupid, and dumb. Now, for those of y'all coming in the room, I'm doing a history lesson before I get into Sonya Mason, and there's a reason why, because all of this ties together. If you don't know why this is happening, I'm pretty much explaining it to you. So when we got into the ghettos, that is how we are here right now. The ghetto is the reason we here. The ghetto is the reason why we are unaliving each other. It's the ghetto that is the reason why we are the most uneducated group of people. We are the reason why. See, when our ancestors who were in segregation, they were all about unity. Yeah, there were some issues, but it was all about unity. It was all about coming together. And we also had our own communities, but same thing like they did with Chinatown. We had our own little community, but they realized we were resilient regardless of what we went through. We were resilient. Now, and then as time went on, then you have, the wonderful thing that is of envy. We let the 7 deadly sins come into our community and have a field day. We let all these demonic spirits come into our community and just keep us in this godforsaken negative space. And then there was hip hop. Hip hop in the beginning was about telling stories about what's going on in the community, about what was going on in the ghettos, and how Black people weren't able to evolve. The only thing Black people could be was servants. So let's go there for a minute. Let's look at what's her name? Give me a minute. Josephine Baker. I'm gonna start there. Josephine Baker was a woman that was all about not wanting to be in her environment. She was a dreamer. She was somebody that knew there was more out there than the ghetto. And she was determined to basically get away from all of this. And there were a lot of Black people that were dreamers. Majority of the things that are made in this country were made by Black people, but they don't get credit for it, nor did it get paid for it. An example of this, Colonel Sanders, aka KFC, that recipe came from an African woman. And he paid her $1,000 for that recipe, and now he's making billions. So yeah, let's get into it. So Josephine Baker decided, she met someone and they decided to take her to France. When she got to France, because she was aka exotic, she was able to be very successful. But I'm gonna bring up something that's gonna trigger a lot of people, so please forgive me, but there's a reason why I'm saying this. She was looked at like an animal. So let me break down that context. Do you know why they call Black people monkeys? They call Black people monkeys because Black people have the ability to, as far as entertainment. So let me break down what they really think of you. You were only a servant and you were only a godforsaken entertainer. Well, in sports, but that's the reason why Black people are only entertainers, servers, and athletes. That's how they look at you. You are just here to entertain them. And if you cannot entertain them, and if you're not an athlete and you're not a servant, then you are nothing. So it's amazing how none of y'all didn't pick up on that. So anyway, she goes to France and they look at her like she's a monkey. So you have to understand, rock and roll did come from Black people. Country did come from Black people. We have this ability to, no matter what we go through, we can always entertain ourselves. We're always very resilient. And we're also very forgiving. And even though people do things to us, we don't do it to them, but we'll do it to each other. And I never understood that when I was a kid. Why is it that black people can destroy each other, but they can't never destroy the people that destroyed them that were not black? Because that came from our culture in Africa. Because in Africa, it was just Africa. So Africans only destroyed other Africans. Africans never wanted to go outside of the United States to go and find nothing. They were fine just as they are. They just rather fight against each other than fight against other cultures. But then again, we didn't know about other cultures, now did we? But back to Josephine Baker. Josephine Baker went to France and did very well for herself because she was considered exotic. So the first word of exotic came from Josephine Baker, which means the word exotic meant black people. We were exotic. There is no other race that is exotic except black people. Because during that time, even in France, they considered us exotic. When it came to music, it was black people that were the ones that were doing music. When it came to writing, it was black people that were the ones that were doing writing. When it came to poems, when it came to all of that, when it came to entertainment, we were the ones that entertained. Do you remember in 12 years of slavery, when that man was in New York and he was free, he was what? Performing. So you had two things you could be. You could either be a server or an entertainer. That's all you could do as a black person. It wasn't about you being educated. So let's go further. So she becomes successful, does very well for herself. And in France, they didn't care about you and your color. But black people were considered monkeys. We were when it came to Caucasian people. And that's why the word monkey is so personal to a lot of people because of what it represents. Same thing with Uncle Tom's and Sam Bull's, the same thing. But anyway, long story short, she ended up wanting to go home to visit her family. So the guy that she was married to told her that it was a bad idea to go home because of everything that was going on with segregation, everything that was going on as far as the treatment of black people, because there was, thing with Martin Luther King and all this other stuff going on around that time. Anyway, long story short, she goes home. And they're all excited because she gets to perform and she's coming into town because she's one of the first black people that's able to perform in front of Caucasian people. She gets there and everything is good until she finds out she has to go through the servants' quarters in order to perform. And that's when she got pissed off because she said, why in the world do I need to go through the servants' quarters to perform when I should be going in front of the front door? Do you know at one time black people couldn't even go through the front door? They had to go through the service quarters. Do you know how many celebrities couldn't even go and go on the red carpet? Dorothy Dandridge, Cab Calloway, even Sammy Davis Jr. had to go through the servants' quarters. They could not go through the front. So anyway, so she caused all this controversy and they got back to France. So when she came back, everything went downhill. Everything went downhill and she lost everything in the end, including her husband. And she adopted 15 kids and lost them as well. So you see what I mean? You have no idea how many black people got here and then came right back down and came crashing down. See, the minute that we do something that goes against everything, we lose everything because everything is stripped of us. Which is why in 2000 and when rap came, let's go there. You want to know why all these dudes don't have their labels no more? Because they bought them. You know the reason why every time somebody, when it comes to designing and stuff like that, and they have a chance to have a fashion house, why they so quick to be, involved? Why you think Rihanna can't have her own fashion house? I mean, did that ever cross your minds? That may be why. They don't want you to have nothing unless they are a part of it. But y'all don't want to have that conversation, do you? So if you want to know why what happened to Sonya Mason happened, it's because this is their country and they can do what they want to. They can treat you any kind of way. This is not your country. And I keep saying this. This is not our country. They can discriminate against us all day long if they want to. They can make it so we never have nothing. And they can also send us back to Africa if they want to. And that's the part y'all don't understand. You don't have no power here. You only get what you are given. What they allow you to have. That's why no black person could have their own label. And they had to be under another label. Even with Motown, Motown was under a Caucasian label. And then y'all talk about, well, it's the Caucasian people's fault. Why all this stuff is going? No, it ain't. No, it's not. And I'm gonna tell you how that happened. California. California is how that happened. In New York, when KRS-One went against MC Shan, when you had self-destruction, when you had Fight the Power, when you had X-Clan, and you had Digital Planets, and you had Black Moon, and you had Mobb Deep, and you had all of these artists, they were telling their stories, or they were battling, one of the two. It was all about having fun in New York. It wasn't about what the South and California took it to, but we're going to go in order. If you ain't never seen Crush Groovin', please go watch it, because that will tell the story of how the first original hip hop label came to be. And you want to know how Russell Simmons got it? It was Rick Rubin. Rick Rubin is the person that they deal with. They do not deal with Russell Simmons at all. They deal with basically Rick Rubin. If it was not for Rick Rubin, Russell Simmons would have never got Def Jam. They did not want to deal with Russell Simmons in any capacity. That's why I said, go watch Crush Groove. This is the story of how Russell Simmons got Def Jam. That man went to dozens, and I do mean dozens, of labels that did not want anything to do with him and whatsoever. And then the first artist that they signed was LL Cool J. You had Curtis Blow, Fat Boys, you had LL Cool J, and I'm missing somebody in that movie. But you need to go watch that movie, because that is the history of hip hop. And then you had Nas and Jay-Z that came much later. And then all the artists from New York, Wu-Tang Clan, Jesus, I can go down the list. And Busta Rhymes was in a group before he was even a solo artist. And then you had Tribe Called Quest, you had De La Soul, Queen Latifah, Moni Love, and all these other people. Okay? Now, y'all probably wondering, for those of y'all coming in the room, what am I talking about? We're talking about the history of Black people and how this correlates with today in the situation with Sonya Massey, and why this is so important. Okay? So when Black people started telling their stories about what happened in New York, and being that rap was more about fun, and then you had African Bambaataa, Sugar Hill Gang, and multiple other artists, rap was not that serious. It wasn't like it was something that was serious unless they were doing rap battles, and it strictly stayed on wax. But that was when all the unalivings came, when it came to New York, and all the people fighting amongst each other. And that's when the drugs started taking over. And that's when you had Frank Lucas and all of them during that time, when it came to drugs. So when drugs came into the Black communities, when it came to the ghettos, that's when everything changed. That's when Black people started fighting and unaliving themselves amongst each other. So that's when we started fighting amongst each other, when the drug era came. That's when the violence in the Black community came, which around the 1970s, 1960s. That's when everything changed. When we got into the ghettos is what changed Black people. We went from people that were respected. We went from people that actually were successful, that actually had money, to now we're in the godforsaken ghettos with the worst godforsaken education system in the whole entire world. You have Black people robbing other Black people. You have Black people that were basically doing God knows what, because we were in the slums again. So we're right back to where we were before the Harlem Renaissance and before the Black Wall Street. So everything was stripped from us yet again. How many times do we have to have stuff stripped from us? I mean, seriously. This whole entire time I've been saying how we've been stripped. Since even Africa, we've been stripped of everything. But the crazy part is now y'all are doing the godforsaken behavior. So it went from Caucasian people trying to strip everybody to now y'all are doing the same behavior. You're not doing that but repeating your oppressor's behavior. And y'all can't understand this? And you wonder why things keep getting stripped from us. Because we're not supposed to be doing this behavior in the first place. We are not supposed to be out here having single mothers and y'all not raising your kids after everything Black women have had to deal with. And for those of y'all who didn't hear what I said about that, go back to the beginning of the video because I talked about this. How can a Black woman know what it's like to have sex when a Black woman from the very beginning was sexually assaulted at the age of 9 years old? Whether she wanted to have sex or not, she didn't have a choice. In this country, we were sexually assaulted by all race of men. So what don't y'all understand? Where were y'all at when all of this happened? Where were y'all at when these Caucasian men were sexually assaulting us right next to you during slavery? Where were you at? Y'all couldn't say nothing. You couldn't do nothing, or something would have happened to you. So it's either you or us. Y'all chose yourselves. And you really want to have this conversation? So if you want to know why that situation happened with Sonya Massey, it's because who was there, knowing she had a disability? Who was there to protect her? See, because if a man would have been in the house, none of this would be happening now, would it? Nope. It would have never happened. And at the end of the day, being that she had a disability, how far did she stay from her family? And I'm not blaming the family in any capacity, but again, it takes a village to raise a child. And just because the child's an adult does not mean they should be by themselves. I have a child with autism, so let me start there. I got a child with a disability. I am not going to not make sure my child is good, disability or not. I'm going to make sure he's good. Because I'd rather him call me than call the police. That way, if I'm there and they get there, at least I can talk to the authorities knowing something is wrong. So I don't know why they didn't tell her just to call them first and then call the police, which I wish that's what they would have done. She would have done. So this thing with Sonya Massey is deeper than just about her being shot. Because it was no different than the KKK when it came to the godforsaken crosses. Did you think these people stopped their behavior just because it's not in front of your face? Just because something is not in your face does not mean that it's still not being done. It's just another version of it. It's just like, if I can't tear somebody down in one way, I'm going to tear you down another way. So let me go spiritual, because this is where it's going to really make sense. There are 3 ways that demonic entities can come into your world and destroy it. And that's you willingly let it in to destroy your world. It manipulates, bamboozles, and leads astray, or it forces its way in. Now, it could be possible that she had issues with that police officer prior to, because they did say that his wife allegedly worked for a hospital, that she went to the hospital and there was an issue between her and his wife. So it could be just about anything. We don't know. But there was that man did just not shoot her for no reason. He shot her for a reason. You don't shoot somebody because they say, I rebuke you. That's not a reason to shoot somebody. No, there was something more to that. He had a vendetta against this woman, which means they have dealt with each other before, prior to. Now, would this have happened and Black people wouldn't be having the behavior that they have? Probably not. So let's backtrack back to what I was saying earlier. Now, when New York was doing rap, yes, they were unaliving each other. Gun violence was at an all-time high. But then you had self-destruction and you had all of these other artists that were trying to bring peace. And then it went from that to California. Oh my God, let's go here. California is the reason why everything that is of today is what it is, and it has not changed. California was, Lord, please forgive me, Bitches ain't shit but hoes and tricks. When they started calling women bitches and hoes, when you had men out here prostituting young females, I was so offended. Cause I think y'all forgot what we as women have went through during slavery, and y'all still didn't understand this. So y'all allowed us to be sexually assaulted by other race of men, and you had to lay there and watch it, but yet and still you choose to do the same behavior. Let's not even forget about there were black people that actually owned slaves that did the exact same thing that Caucasian people did. But I mean, y'all don't want to talk about that, do you? So you became the oppressor. So you now have become the abuser that have abused women and do the exact same behavior. And now you're saying you don't want other races of men or any men to raise your children. Is it maybe because you want us to be seat fillers? Maybe you want us to be seat fillers. You want us to sit here and go through all this abuse, all this trauma that black women have never been able to deal with, because a lot of black women don't even know this mess even happened. Why? Because it's not talked about. Oh, but it's talked about today because we're going to talk about it. Black women have been abused since Africa. Black women have lost their husbands since there was a war between Africans and Africans. Black women had to be married at the age of 9 years old, but okay. I mean, seriously? When have black women ever had a choice? I'm trying to understand. When have black women ever had a choice? So if you want to know why black women are independent, self-sufficient, and dominant, there's your answer. Because when have we ever been protected? When have we ever been protected? Please enlighten me, because I would like to know when we have ever been protected. Because I would like to know when. Because I pretty much just said why we haven't been protected in any shape, form, or fashion. Now, I understand that you're pissed off because y'all had to raise biracial women, biracial kids. Because I'm a prodigy because my mother is mixed. But my mother looks like she's black. I still don't know who my grandfather is. I just know he ain't black. But okay. I mean, you want to talk about light skin privilege? Oh, let me go here because I've been waiting on this one here. Let me break down light skin privilege, because I'm going to go right back to what I said about the first prostitution in the United States in New York City was biracial women. Do you know biracial women were basically sold as prostitutes? So if you want to know why light skinned women are treated the way they're treated, and that is why. They didn't tell you that, did they? They didn't tell you that, did they? That is the reason y'all look at light-skinned women the way you do. That is why y'all want light-skinned women. It has nothing to do with what you're talking about. You want to know how I know this? Because my grandmother told me. And I also looked it up. Hold on. Let me go to Google, because I'll make sure I prove my point. Hold on. Make sure I can pull it up. I meant to pull it up a little bit earlier. Y'all gonna understand something about me. Hold on, I might be spelling it wrong. It's easy, but I can't. Hold on. The first prostitution in the United States. Let me say biracial. Hold on. Hold on. The first biracial prostitution ring in the United States. Okay, so prostitution was 2400 BC. I didn't even know that. Hold on. Biracial. They may not have it. They may have taken it down. But when did prostitution go in America? Okay, here it is. It was 1770 to 1920. But I'm trying to find the thing about, okay, were slaves in prostitution? This is what I'm looking for right here. Yep, we were in prostitution and used as prostitution. Aside from female slaves used as concubines in private homes, female slaves were also prostitutes. So it says, how were female slaves punished? It says whipping is a common form of slave punishment, deemed the removal of clothing for female slaves. This generally meant disrobing down to the waist. Although her state of hair dress allowed the woman to have some modesty, it also exposed her naked breast to all the eyes. Okay, I'm glad I saw this because this is important. Because what I need y'all to understand, y'all have no idea how females were treated. It says many female slaves were treated as objects to serve sexual exploitation, often bearing children with of their white masters, master sons, and overseas. Slaves were prohibited from defending themselves against any type of abuse, including sexual at the hands of white men. Do you really want to have this conversation? Y'all really want to have this conversation? Because we can have this conversation all God's second day long. That's what I'm saying. Y'all don't want me on these panels because I'm trying to tell you, I'll make y'all cry. I will make black women look at y'all so godforsaken different. It's not even funny. And y'all have the audacity to sit up here and talk about black women the way you do, considering how y'all have failed black women over and over and over and over again throughout history. Some of y'all ain't ready for this conversation. Everything that I'm saying is now correlating in 2024 because the same behavior of men in the black community is really a slap in the face. Because how in the world are you going to sit up here and put other race of women before black women, considering we were out there with you? We were out there in them fields with you. We were doing everything out there with you and doing the same thing, but yet and still you want to sit there and talk about black women. Y'all don't want this conversation. You don't. So let's get to, I want to say all that because I think it needed to be said. It absolutely needed to be said. Because I'm tired of y'all at this point. I am so sick and tired of y'all on these panels. I'm tired of y'all saying much to do about nothing when none of y'all don't know anything about history. You know nothing about the pain of a black woman. You really don't. Black women have had to deal with abuse for God knows how long. And we still continue to go through abuse. And despite how we are treated by black men in 2024, we still stand by y'all. We still believe in y'all, even though you treat us the way that you do. But let me continue on reading. What were black slave females called? The general word for a female slave was serve, and it is an unica of an upper class hold that might serve as a sort of lady maid. A seal in the settings might be specialized in attending to upkeep, storage, readiness of the master's wardrobe or jewelry. So, like I said, I'm trying to understand how, and it also says the way that black men were treated versus black women. However, especially on large farms and plantations, field work was divided along gender lines and with more physical demanding tasks assigned to men gangs. Men, for instance, might chop down wood for fences, while women might put in charge of construction. Men generally plowed the fields, and while women hoed. So I'm trying to understand why y'all trying to say that black women didn't do the same thing y'all did. No, we didn't cut down wood. We was out there hoeing and basically planting stuff. Okay, I'm just trying to understand. And then it also says that during domestic slave trades, the new category of enslaved women emerged known as fancy girls, young girls that were light skinned. These black women were purchased explicitly for. Wait, hold on. Let me share my screen. We're going to talk about this today. Y'all talking about light skin this, light skin that. Let's get into it because I've been dying to do this. Because I'm really tired of dark skinned women because dark skinned women have no idea what light skinned women had to deal with. But you're now going to understand why light skinned women are looked at the way they're looked at. I have been wanting to do this for a very long time because I always hear, you're a light skinned girl. You got privilege. No, we don't. That pretty privilege is not what you think it is. I'm about to break down what that means. And I am doing a video on pretty privilege. And when I tell y'all, it's going to hurt your feelings. It is really, 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 really going to hurt your feelings. But give me a minute. Let me share my screen. Here it is right here. What were fancy girls during slavery? During domestic slave trades, a new category of enslaved women emerged known as fancy girls. Young and usually light-skinned, these black women were purchased explicitly for sexual exploitation at rates of 4 to 5 times the price of women field laborers. Do you really want to go here? Because we can talk about it. Matter of fact, let's talk about it. Let's go into a little bit of context. Let's get into it because I've been dying to get into this because I am really tired of y'all thinking that light-skinned women are better. Because trust me, they are not. The way that they were sexually exploited during slavery, you have no idea. It says fancy girls were young, light-skinned enslaved women that were sold for explicit sexual exploitation during the 19th century domestic slave trade. They were often sold as laborers, reproduction, and forced concubines, and were sometimes called fetishes, condominiums. I can't never say that right. New Orleans was well known for marketing fancy girls who use on steamboats traveling up and down the Mississippi River. Slaveholders could make a lot of money for the sale of a fancy girl who was often paid 4 to 5 times. Hold on, there's more than field laborers. Do y'all really want to have this conversation? I done told y'all I'm gonna come with some receipts because I done told y'all. If y'all really knew the truth, a lot of y'all females would not be out here having sex the way you having sex right now. You wouldn't. You wouldn't be doing it at all. And I know some of y'all saying, well, this is way off topic. No, it ain't. No, it ain't. It's right on topic. But let's get into it. Enslaved women were separated from their families in many ways, including long distance sales, local sales, gifting, and division of slaveholder estates after death. Slaveholders often forced enslaved women to submit to their sexual advances and sometimes pairing good breeding to produce children that could be sold at a higher price. Do y'all not understand now why Roe versus Wade is what it is right now? I mean, that's the main reason why they want you to have children. It's the main reason they want you to get married. Because they need exactly what that just said. Game recognizes game, people. During the domestic trades, that's what I already read there. So, yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, how much do y'all really want to have this conversation? Because there's a whole lot of situations. Mary Etta Morrison, 1832 to 1853. Emma Etta Morso, 1835 to September 15, 1995. Two respectable women of light complexion were African Americans who became celebrities in the United States in the abolitionist movement of freedom from slavery. Interesting. So like I said, before you sit here and y'all get on these panels, I think you might want to do some research, because here's a whole lot of research right here that we're going to get into. Matter of fact, this right here, beyond bedrooms and brothels. And these are women that pretty much spoke about them being in brothels. So if you think that light-skinned women were not the first ones in brothels, yes, they were. Okay, I just want to make sure I clarify that. So before you sit here and y'all come at me, tell me I do not know what I'm talking about when I speak on what I speak on, trust me, yes, I do. Because at the end of the day, if you want to know why these men are looking at you the way you're looking at, there you go. Because black women have been soiled good for so long, and that is why these men do not respect you as they should. That is why black women are at the bottom of the totem pole. That is why black women are disrespected the way they are disrespected, because of this right here. And I wanted to bring this up because I'm tired of y'all talking about black women don't deserve protection. Now you know why. Now you know why. Now you know what I've known for years. And this is why I cannot take men seriously. This is why I said no matter what a black woman does, you will always be a scarlet letter. And your scarlet letter is soiled goods. Your scarlet letter is you're just going to be looked at as sex. That's why black women are the most loyal. That's why black women are the ones that no matter what we go through, we will always be the most forgiving. And we still will believe there's a light at the end of the tunnel. You want to know why? Because if we started looking at things in a negative way, I promise you every single black woman would probably break down crying at this point. So if you want to know why that man did what he did to her, there's your answer right there. There's your answer right there. For those of you that do not understand why Sonya Massey went through what she went through, read what's right there. Black women have never been protected. So at the end of the day, I don't care about any of what y'all talking about. And when I see black women go through human trafficking, when I see black women going through what this young lady went through, when I see black women being sexually assaulted, molestation, and y'all going after these young girls, you want to know why I got an issue with it? This is why. And some of y'all gonna run from this video because you weren't prepared for this. You thought I was gonna get on this camera and you thought I was just gonna sit up here and just say something about this situation, not understanding I was gonna bring more context to it. You can't come for me with this. This is the stuff y'all want to run from. You want to act like it didn't happen, like this didn't exist, like we were not treated like this. Guess what? We were. We were. And I am creating a channel just to go into this. Because if black women really knew what I knew, do you know the lack of respect we'd have for black men at this point? Do you know how much damage black women have had to deal with from decades? And you would think by now it would stop. You would think that black men, after everything we've been through, would never treat us the way you do. But let me break down why you treat us the way you do. Because you had to raise a Caucasian and that woman's baby. So now, because in your minds, you feel like we were forced to have to raise another man's baby, why in the world should black men raise another man's baby? Oh, so you don't want to raise your baby, but yet and still you don't want another man to step in. But then again, we have to deal with child molestation. So black women, you're the last ones that should be running around having babies. You're the last one that should be letting these men have sex with you before marriage. You're the last ones that should not have standards. Boy, let me go here. Y'all the last ones that should be demanding a man be celibate. You're the last ones that should be sitting up here running around doing with all these other women when it comes to sex. You're the last ones that should be running around showing off everything, considering what we've been through. When are y'all going to understand this? You're queens. And you have let every single solitary race sit there and blatantly disrespect you. You let these men sit up here and lie and bamboozle and lead you astray. Do you really want to have this conversation with me? Because I wanted to do this a little differently. I want to do this a little bit differently because I'm sick of y'all. I am sick of y'all on these panels. I am sick of y'all getting on social media and tearing each other down. I am sick of y'all and all this negative nonsense that you do, and I wish it would stop. You're the last ones that should be doing anything that's illegal. You're the last ones that should be messing around with somebody else's wife or somebody else's husband. Black women, you're the last ones that should be concubines, side chicks. You're the last ones that should be doing that. But let's get into why this shouldn't have happened. Now, I was gonna play the footage, but then I changed my mind because I just don't get to watch. I just don't have the heart to watch it. I just can't do it. A black woman that was in her house, mind her own business. A black woman who called because she thought she heard a prowler. And the police, all they had to do was go and check to see whether or not that there was a prowler. All they had to do was go and check to see again if there was a prowler. If they didn't find a prowler, all they had to do was say to her, well, we didn't find anything, but if anything happens, give us a call and let us know. Why were they in her house? And then again, I wish she would have called her family. That way, I would have rather them had came out there to make sure everything was fine before her calling 911. I want to find out the story between her and that man's wife when she went to the hospital. Now, my condolences to this young lady. I am never going to sit here and blame her for what happened. But this is what happens when black women are not protected. This is what happens when a black woman don't have a husband. This is what happens when black women are basically on their own. Because apparently we are always going to be on our own. I mean, the way y'all be talking on these godforsaken platforms is absolutely ridiculous to me. So, like I said, this video is not about Caucasian people. Because it's not. I have nothing against Caucasian people whatsoever. This is about the fact of why black women are disrespected the way they've been disrespected throughout the years. It's a shame how disrespectful that black men are. Like we weren't there in the trenches with you. Like we didn't go through all of this with you. Like y'all had to go through this alone and there was no black women. Do you not have any idea what it's like to lose your children and they tell you that they're not going to take your kids from you or strip your kids from you and then they do and then they lie to you? How did we got here and our names got changed? See, this is all an educational video. It really is. I have nothing against any Caucasian person, but I really want to go over this history because, like I said, I can't continue to blame Caucasian people for black people's behavior because it is no longer Caucasians people that are the problem here. If a black man would have been in the house, none of this would have happened. If she'd have been with her family, none of this would have happened. But unfortunately, that's not the situation that was given here. People that were supposed to protect this woman, people that were supposed to provide and serve, protect and serve, really destroyed this woman. And now it makes you scared to have the police come to your house because you're worried about whether they're going to shoot you or not. And we got here because of all the behavior that I just talked about. See, maybe if black people would change their behavior and maybe if black people would stop trying to be out here trying to commit crimes and stop trying to hurt each other and do all these things to each other and realize that we have a very serious healing that needs to be done and there is a very serious problem that needs to be addressed, maybe we wouldn't be here. Maybe we start acting like the kings and queens that we're supposed to be. Maybe, just maybe, we wouldn't be playing games and manipulating and bamboozling somebody. Maybe we wouldn't be in the situation that we're in. Maybe if y'all would stop trying to make people do something they just don't want to do. Maybe if y'all would stop getting on social media and tearing somebody down, despite what they said, is that there's a thing called correcting people. So instead of you sitting up here talking about Dana Dane and what she said and what the other person said, why not just correct them? I would think that would be the right thing to do. I would think some of y'all who's supposed to be godly people in this godforsaken world, I would think that y'all would do better. I would think y'all would be better. I would think that black people would be the last ones doing anything that is negative. I would think that you would. I would think y'all would be on some, you know what, let's go build a Wakanda. I would think y'all would be on that godforsaken ticket. But you know what? That just does not seem to be the case now, is it? See, you ain't ready for this conversation because the majority of y'all, as soon as you came in here, you walked out. Why? Because you thought I was going to sit up here and talk about this situation from the perspective that everybody else is talking about. No, I'm not going to talk about this from the perspective everybody else talking about it. Because, like I said, the point is we have to go back in our history to learn how we got here in the first place. What negative behavior started this? How did we get off track? How did we end up in this situation in the first place? Don't you think we should have that type of conversation? I would think so. So again, I don't understand y'all's behavior. And then you get mad when these people that are non-black are saying the N-word, but you have no idea what the N-word actually means. And then y'all try to take everything that is positive, that is negative, and try to make it positive. You can't make something negative positive. What is wrong with y'all? You can't make something that is negative positive. You just can't. Now I understand we ain't never gonna get justice for everything that we've been through. That's never gonna happen. And we ain't never gonna get any retribution or any of that for what happened. But don't you think it's time that we heal at this point? Don't you think that we need to do a ceasefire? Don't you think we need to figure out, no, let me take it back. Newly figure out how the black community needs to be. Because let me give you an example what I'm talking about. And I'm not gonna play music, but I can go through a whole list of songs that will prove my point. You got women out here talking about being side chicks, running around showing off everything. Like that is something to be proud of, even though it's not nothing to be proud of in any capacity, but yet y'all get a kick out of it. It's really amazing how you really think it is cool to be a side chick. It's cool to show off everything. It's cool to think that you're controlling sex, when in all actuality, you're not controlling sex at all. You're not. That man is still getting what he wants. So I don't care how much you think you're in control of the narrative when it comes to sex. You are not control of the narrative. You're not. And learning what I learned about the way black women were treated when it comes to sex is the most disrespectful, most degrading thing a woman could go through. And I feel bad for Sonya Massey. I do. I feel bad for her family. I feel bad for her friends and everybody who knew and loved her. Those men should have never went to the house. Why in the world were they in the house? That's why I wish her family members would have been there. Especially considering she had a disability. I wish she would have just called her daddy or called somebody and said, look, there's somebody at my house. Can you come by and check? And then if there was, the police could have been called because at least somebody would have been there to stand for her. Now, I'm not saying that it still wouldn't have happened, but at least she'd still be here. I think about Shanquilla Robinson and the fact that she lost her life to a bunch of friends and she still didn't get any justice. Trayvon Martin didn't get any justice. When are y'all going to stop y'all behavior? When are y'all going to change the representation of black people? You want to know why a lot of people don't want to represent themselves as black people? Because of the behavior. It's the behavior and the reputation that black people have. And that's why you're being treated the way you're treated. Y'all still can't let go of this ghetto, ratchet, ignorant, stupid, dumb behavior. Y'all still can't let go of stuff that needs to be let go of. Black people should be the main ones in relationships and happily married. Black people should be the main ones that should be understanding that we can't do negativity in any capacity, that we have to work together to build. We got to understand that we still have a whole entire mountain to climb to get where we need to be, and we're taking 40 steps back. Do you know how disappointing our ancestors will be right now, considering the way y'all act as Black people? See, I'm an adult. I'm 50 years old. I was born in the 1970s, so I know what my parents had to deal with. My parents were actually during the time of Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, and it's sad that Malcolm X was killed by his own people. But yet and still, y'all don't want to have that conversation either. See, you don't want to talk about how a lot of African American people have unalived their own people that were trying to basically be leaders. So you want to know the real reason that we don't have leadership? Because one of y'all might try to unalive that person. See, that's why we don't have a Moses. See, if we had a Moses, we could actually have that person that says, let our people go. Because have y'all ever occurred to y'all that maybe that we are Moses? Maybe we are the Israelites, and maybe we need a Moses that basically get us up out of here so we can go where God wants us to go. Because maybe God has been telling us for a long time that it's time for us to go. But no, y'all don't want to have that conversation. No, you don't. You want to know? No, because you're waiting for your reparation that you ain't never going to get. Has it ever occurred to you that Stan Lee is the number one thing that told me that God is trying to tell me it's time to take my people and go? And be like the story of Lot and don't look back. Y'all are so afraid of your God-forsaken spiritual destinies, it is not even funny. You rather be negative and let people of other races tell you that you're negative. So are we still in slavery in 2024? Because it seems to me like we still are. It seems to me like some of y'all still want to be on this negative, ghetto, ratchet, ignorant, stupid, dumb behavior that I really wish y'all would get over. I really wish y'all would grow up and stop being Toys R Us kids. I really wish y'all would stop sitting on these godforsaken panels and destroying each other. I really wish you'd quit. I really wish half of y'all who don't even know what the hell y'all be talking about much to do about nothing. It is both of your faults. It is Black men and Black women's fault. But instead of both of y'all saying, I screwed up, instead of us saying, you know what, we have 400 years of trauma. Don't you think it's time we heal from 400 years of trauma? Because maybe if we had a whole entire month to just sit there and cry, if we would stop sitting up here doing and destroying each other, maybe if we stop doing stuff that other race of people are doing that is negative, that we shouldn't be doing in the first place, maybe we wouldn't have these police brutality issues. See, it goes back to hip hop. It goes back to the fact that y'all need to start putting some godforsaken clothes on. I need Black women to start being queens. I need Black women to start representing themselves as dignified. I need y'all to stop sitting up here talking like y'all a bunch of godforsaken dudes. I need y'all to put some godforsaken soap in your mouth and wash out them godforsaken, dirty, disgusting things that come out your mouths. Some of y'all just need to be bent over and need to be spanked thoroughly. Seriously. Some of y'all don't know absolutely nothing about nothing because half of y'all didn't even pay attention to godforsaken history class. When is it gonna stop? What happened to Sonya Massey was unfortunate. But it happened because of Black people and y'all godforsaken reputation. Y'all and y'all negativity is why this happened. Y'all and the blatant disrespect of each other, because if y'all can disrespect each other, that means anybody can disrespect y'all. See, I love the double standard though. Y'all don't say nothing when Black people destroy each other, but you'll say something when Caucasian people do. No, it don't work that way. I hold both of y'all responsible. Because as long as Black people continue to allow other Black people to destroy each other, guess what? Other race and cultures can do the same thing. And you think going after another race of culture thinking they're better is going to change anything. That's not going to change nothing. You're still going to be a Black man. You're still going to be disrespected. And they still going to think you're an embarrassment. See, I lived overseas. And before the passport bros, my daddy and them went to Vietnam. Military men have been going over and dating women outside their race. And so have rich and powerful men. You late, black men. Y'all late. You're late. You're late to the party. They have been dating women outside their race since the 1940s. What are you talking about? When America had to go to Vietnam was the first time that American men were bringing home women from overseas. That ain't nothing new. There's nothing new. Tell me something that I don't know. Like I said, y'all gotta grow up. This woman did not deserve to go through what she went through. And like I said, this would have never happened if for two reasons. Number one, I wish she'd have called her family. I'm gonna keep saying that. And number two, if there's a man in the house, none of this would be going on right now. So where were all the black men protecting her when this happened? Where were all the black men at when Sandra Bland went through what she went through? Where were all the black men at when black women were being sexually assaulted? Where were y'all at? Where were y'all at when your sister was alone with some boy and this boy said, if you love me, you'll have sex with me? Where were y'all at when all that happened? Where were y'all at when your sister went to a party and ended up drunk and ended up sexually assaulted? Where was daddy at? Where was daddy with the shotgun and asked the boy what his intentions are? Where is daddy at when you try to sneak out the house and daddy's like, absolutely not? And for those of y'all who are phenomenal fathers in the black community, I salute you. For those of y'all who love your wives and respect your wives and ain't out here cheating on your wives, I salute you. I do. I salute you. I salute any black man that understands the true beauty of a black woman. See, the one thing about black women, we're just like coal. And underneath the coal, there's a diamond. And you might have a whole bunch of coal that don't have any diamonds in it, but that one person is going to find that coal with diamonds in it, and he's going to hold on to it. Problem is, when people find out that he got that diamond, everybody and mama going to want that diamond and do anything they can to get that diamond, even if that means destroying and unaliving that man. See, our black people can't never have nothing without somebody else wanting to be a part of it who had nothing to do with it. Black people are the main ones that will lift somebody up and tear somebody down. I mean, even with the situation with Cardi B and all these, rappers and all this beef and all this stupid dumbness and everybody going on social media and in their feelings because somebody said, who cares? Somebody said something about you. Who cares if somebody got something negative to say about you? If you don't really want to know these people, then why in the world does it matter? It's amazing how people think that words have power. No, words only have power if you allow it to have power. And that's the problem. The things that should have power, the words that should have power, don't have power. And that's the sad part. The things that really should matter don't. Like I said, I can't sit there and watch that body footage just make me cry. And that's why I couldn't show it, because I just can't. It's just too traumatizing for me. I didn't know her personally, but I feel like I can relate to her. I have a child with autism, so I can relate. So at the end of the day, if I was them, I would get rid of Ben Crump, because Ben Crump is not the lawyer they need. Ben Crump is just going to get them to sign papers away so these police officers are never going to get charged. I think them Caucasian people be using Ben Crump just to get these people not to go take these people to court. I think by giving them a couple $1 million, it would number one, shut them up, and then number two, it will end up pretty much it will shut them up, and then eventually probably end up so these police officers don't ever go to jail. They probably send them somewhere, and some of them may lose their job, but if they take, this is how it works. Let me say this for any of y'all in the future to ever have to deal with a situation where you might end up having a family member that goes through something like this. Please do not accept the money before they go to court. Please don't do that. Wait until after they go to court and then accept the money. If you take the money before they go to court, what's going to happen is they don't get charged. So by signing the papers, that means that person is not being charged. They might be suspended and they may lose their license, but that does not mean they're not going to go somewhere and practice and do the same thing. If I was black people, I would not take any money until he's convicted. Because that way, by him being convicted, you can now sue the state. And the state going to pay you a whole lot more money than him. So I would not sue the state until after he's convicted. So whatever police department, whatever police it is, do not, under any circumstance, take any money prior to them going to court. That's why the situation with Breonna Taylor happened, and they overturned his conviction. So I don't know if he's out or not. I don't know. All I know is if they do an appeal, they're more than likely going to overturn it. So the fact that there have been so many cases that have been where they never went to court or never convicted because they pretty much took the money. So I would never take the money if you're going to want justice for your child. There's no amount of money that will ever make me let a person who did what they did get away with it. It just wouldn't happen like that. So like I said, it's a really tragic situation, and now the black community is divided because you got on one side of the situation, you have people saying that people are being disrespected, that she did throw water on him, and then on the other side, they're saying that's not the case, and people shouldn't even be saying that. But then again, we don't know the whole entire story, so both sides could be right. But my whole thing is I can't watch it because it will make me cry, and it's too traumatizing. And I'm in a spiritual sabbatical. I'm in my peace, quiet, and tranquility. As a matter of fact, I had the video all ready to go. I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. I can't watch that body cam. Just like I couldn't watch that little girl that mama left her for 10 days and that little girl fell down the steps and fell out her bed. I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. It's still embedded in my head. I ain't never gonna forget that. That was traumatizing even for me. There's just some things I just can't watch because just the energy from it, just the fact of the situation even happening. There are some things I can watch, and there's just some things I just can't. And that is something I just can't watch. I cannot watch that body footage. I'd rather hear people talk about it than me watching it. I couldn't even watch the George Floyd situation without breaking down crying. That right there should tell you something. That right there made me sad, and it made me want to cry because I could not believe what I was sitting there watching. Even with Rodney King, I couldn't watch it. It just was sad. And then hearing Trayvon Martin's last words, I just couldn't. Like I said, I lost somebody in death, and I just can't. I don't even go to funerals. That's how I can't. I don't even go to funerals. I can't do it. I don't have the energy to do it. God forbid, I just couldn't do it. So I'm a different breed of person. I'm not taking none of this lightly, but something got to give here. Either the black community has to change their ways and change the way they do things, or this is going to continue to happen. Black people got to change. Sometimes it's not about other people changing, it's about you changing. And as a godly person, it's not about this other person changing, it's about you changing. Because when you change, you ain't going to deal with the same type of people. So maybe the black community changes and get rid of all this negative behavior and all these negative spirits, then maybe the black community can actually thrive. But as long as y'all keep feeding into this negative behavior and feeding into these demons and feeding into the 7 deadly sins, y'all gonna continue down the same road. It's just like Chris Brown. Chris Brown was doing so well, so all of a sudden there's a lawsuit for $50 million because of a fight that happened. I don't know when it happened, but the point is now he's dealing a lawsuit. So now right back to where we started. So even though Chris Brown takes 2 steps forward, 30 steps back, that's my point. When are y'all gonna stop taking 30 steps back after you take 2 steps forward? That makes absolutely no sense. There is no way in the world I'm gonna sit there and take 2 steps forward and take 30 steps back. There is just absolutely no way. It's like every time black people seem to get somewhere, y'all end up right back to where you started. How is that possible? How is that possible? How is it that every time the black community thinks we're gonna get somewhere, aka African American people, you got black people that want to do anything and everything to bring us right back down to the Godforsaken gutter. You got Kamala Harris that got a chance to be vice president. And here come the black people saying, why am I going to vote for her because she's black? But yet you're going to vote for Donald Trump, who got a bunch of racist people that's ready to put you back in Jim Crow. But okay. Like I said, all I'm going to say is this. If Donald Trump get in office, I'm just going to sit back with some popcorn, right? And I'm going to enjoy my boring, peaceful, slow life. And when this man start implementing things, I don't want to hear nothing from none of y'all about Donald Trump and his behavior. I don't want to hear it. And the rest of us who didn't vote for him don't want to hear it either. It's just like some of y'all just don't never learn. You keep thinking these people gonna give you something. Give you what? They ain't gotta give you nothing if they don't want to give you nothing. At the end of the day, I am not against Caucasian people at this point in any capacity. I have forgiven for what happened 400 years ago. I have dealt with the pain of it, and I am not about to sit up here and disrespect my ancestors because I'm somewhat free. Like Kamala said, it is not Kamala said. It's about freedom. And we ain't nowhere near free yet. And this is not just affecting black people, this is affecting everybody. So at the end of the day, we should all be one nation under God. We should all pledge the allegiance and we should all be under the same thing. It should be peace in this country, but yeah, it's always war. Every time I turn around, it's always war all the goddamn time. Every time I turn around, it's somebody being unalive. It's somebody in human trafficking. I don't care what color people are because I don't look at color. We all breathe. We all got the same organs, the same everything. There's nothing different about us except except the external part of us. That's it. Our thinking processes or whatever. But when it comes to color shouldn't even be a factor in this country at this point. Considering we have so many other race of people, you would think that race would not have nothing to do with anything, but yet it seems to be a big thing in this conversation even still. We are still dealing with racism in 2024. Why are we even having these conversations? Why is it that you have black people that are up here, men and women alike, just sitting up here, just disrespecting each other? I don't understand, and I do not get it. None of y'all are innocent. There are black men and black women that do the exact same thing that are negative. I don't see what the difference is. There is no difference. It's just good versus evil. That's it. That's the only thing I look at. Good versus evil. I'm not looking at race. That's why I said I was not making this about race, because not every Caucasian person is a bad person. There are Caucasian people that stand with black people when it comes to racism and don't want to keep dealing with racism. We seen that when it came to the red wave that never came. And everybody came and they voted Democrat. Why? Because they did not want them people in office. And I can't wait till 2026 when we get rid of some more people. Because I hope y'all ready to get rid of some of these Republicans. I really do. I hope y'all are ready to get rid of these politicians that do not have your best interests at heart. I really do. But like I said, black folks, until y'all change y'all behavior, until we change our culture, until we change the way we represent ourselves, we're going to continue to be disrespected. And that's just all there is to it. So I'm going to end this by saying my thoughts and prayers are with with Sonya Massey's family. May she always be the angel that will always be looking over you. May y'all always remember her for the woman that she was. This shouldn't have happened. It's sad that it's happened. But please get rid of Ben Crump, because Ben Crump is not the person y'all need as a lawyer. So that being said, don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, and notification button to receive notifications of my videos. And we will talk very soon. Like I said, this is an educational video. This is not about anything concerning race in a negative manner. This is just explaining why black women are the way they are in 2024 and why black women have never been protected. It's just something I feel that needs to be put out there. But this has nothing to do with Caucasian people of 2024. This got everything to do with the past. If you was not there during that time, this don't apply to you. This applies only to the past and what happened during slavery 400 years ago. And just giving black people a history lesson. That's about it. Other than that, I have nothing against Caucasian people. Caucasian people have not really done anything to me to where I have an issue with them, because I don't. Matter of fact, black people have done far worse than Caucasian people would ever done to me. And Caucasian people have helped me even when people won't. So I have no issues with them. So with that being said, I'm out of here. Love y'all, and I will talk to you later. Bye.